Okay, so you want to own a private island. Total isolation. Your own stretch of sand with nobody else's footprints on it. No rules but your own. No neighbors, no noise, just you and the ocean. That's the picture. That's the fantasy that's been sold in postcards and movies for decades, and it's not entirely a lie. Here's what those postcards don't show you. The listing price you saw online is often less than half of what you'll actually spend. A 5-acre island that costs $750,000 to buy can cost an extra $600,000 just to make livable, and that's before you've built anything that actually looks like a house. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why the purchase price is almost never the real number, why building anything on an island costs far more than building the same thing on the mainland, and why so many private islands sit for years without a single structure on them, no matter how badly someone wanted to live there. Before we get into the numbers, you need to understand what a private island actually is, because most people picture one category, and there are really several. There's the fully developed island, the kind with a house, a dock, and power already in place, ready to move into. There's the raw, undeveloped island, nothing but land and water, where every piece of infrastructure has to be built from scratch. And there's everything in between, partial docks, a generator but no plumbing, a caretaker's cottage but no main house. That distinction, developed versus undeveloped, matters more than almost any other factor in this business, because it determines whether your listing price is close to your final cost or barely a down payment on it. Let's talk about the number that gets all the attention first, the purchase price. Private island prices swing wildly depending on where you're looking. In Nicaragua or Belize, you can find a titled island for a few $100,000s. In the Bahamas or the South Pacific's more exclusive corners, prices climb into the tens of millions. And the very best of them, prime Caribbean or Thai locations near major tourist hubs, can exceed $100 million. The global median listing price sits somewhere between $2 and $5 million, which sounds almost reasonable until you understand what that number actually represents. Here's where the 10% rule of this industry comes from, though almost nobody calls it that. The listing price typically represents only 40 to 60% of what you'll actually spend to own a functioning island. The rest goes to closing costs, legal fees, government permits, and if you're buying undeveloped land, the infrastructure and construction that has to happen before the island is livable at all. And here's the fact that stops most first-time buyers cold. Two islands with the exact same listing price can end up costing wildly different amounts. A developed island listed at $750,000, one that already has a working home and an existing dock, might cost around $850,000 total once fees are included. An undeveloped island at that exact same $750,000 listing price can run $1.35 million by the time it's actually ready to use. Same number on the listing, $500,000 difference in what leaves your bank account. Then there's the part that catches almost every new buyer off guard: government fees and legal requirements. Most Caribbean nations require what's called an alien land holding license for foreign buyers, which alone can cost 5 to 10% of the purchase price and take 3 to 10 months to approve before you own anything at all. The Bahamas charges a stamp duty on property purchases that can run up to 10 to 12%, meaning a $3 million island carries an additional $360,000 in tax before you've spent a cent on the actual land use. If you're buying undeveloped land, here's where the real money goes. Everything has to arrive by barge. There are no roads to an island, no trucks delivering lumber, no easy access for construction crews. A functional floating dock in protected water costs around $30,000. A standard fixed dock, the kind that can handle real boat traffic and rough weather, runs $150,000 to $350,000 depending on water depth and how exposed the site is to open ocean. For remote islands far from the mainland, barge costs alone, just transporting materials before construction even begins, can run $30,000 to $50,000. Add it up, because every material has to be shipped in and every worker has to be transported and housed on site during construction. Island construction costs typically run 1.5 to 3 times what the identical project would cost on the mainland. Build a modest 3-bedroom home on an island, and you're not paying mainland prices with a delivery surcharge. You're paying an entirely different cost structure, driven by weather delays, marine logistics, and specialized construction techniques that simple roads and trucks make unnecessary everywhere else. Here's the part that separates this from almost every other asset we've covered on this channel. Unlike a yacht or an AI data center, there's genuinely no standard revenue model here because most private islands generate no income at all. The overwhelming majority of private island owners buy purely for personal use, a retreat, a legacy property, occasionally a family compound, and they never attempt to make the island pay for itself. But some do, and it works through short-term luxury rental, renting the island out fully staffed for weddings, corporate retreats, or vacation stays, typically through specialized island rental agencies that market almost exclusively to ultra-high net worth clients. A well-developed, accessible island can command rental rates from $10,000 to $50,000 a night depending on size, amenities, and location, and a strong season can generate genuinely meaningful income. But that revenue model only works if the island is developed, staffed, accessible, and marketed properly, all of which are the exact costs that make undeveloped islands look deceptively cheap in the first place. If you want proof that even the cheapest entry points into this market are real, look at Iguana Island, a 5-acre property 12 miles off the coast of Bluefields, Nicaragua, listed at $475,000, genuinely less than the median price of a home in the United States. That's the honest, unglamorous version of private island ownership. Not a $100 million Caribbean estate, but a real titled piece of land that costs less than a house in most American suburbs. Precisely because it's undeveloped, remote, and requires the buyer to build literally everything themselves. Which brings us to the real question sitting underneath all of this. If most islands generate no revenue and cost far more than their listing price to actually use, why does the market keep growing every year? The honest answer is that almost nobody buying a private island is doing the math the way we just did. They're buying certainty of isolation in a world where genuine privacy has become almost impossible to purchase any other way. Let's build the two honest scenarios, because this is where the real picture comes into focus. In the good year, you've bought a developed island, already fitted with a home, power, and a dock, close enough to a regional airport that guests and staff can reach it easily. Your total cost lands close to the listing price, maybe 10 to 15% higher once fees are included. You use it several weeks a year yourself, and rent it out the rest of the time through a specialized agency, generating enough income to cover insurance, staff, and maintenance, essentially breaking even on a beautiful asset that's also quietly appreciating. And then, in a single unlucky year, everything changes. In the bad year, you bought undeveloped raw land at what looked like a bargain price, and construction dragged on for years longer than planned because barges were delayed by weather, materials arrived damaged after ocean transport, and a hurricane passed close enough to halt work for months and damage the partial dock you'd already built. Your all-in cost has already exceeded double the original listing price, and you still don't have a finished, livable structure. Insurance on unfinished island property in a hurricane-prone region is expensive and difficult to secure, and every delay adds carrying costs, permit renewal fees, and caretaker salaries, all while the island generates exactly $0 of revenue. That gap between an already developed island close to civilization and a raw, remote island you're building from nothing is the entire story of private island ownership condensed into one number. And unlike almost every other asset on this channel, the gap here isn't about market conditions or competition. It's almost entirely about logistics, geography, and how much of the hard work someone else already did before you bought it. So here's the honest question. If the true cost so often runs double the listing price, and most islands never generate $1 of income, why do people keep buying them anyway? The answer, once you strip away the postcard, is the same answer that shows up again and again in this series when the operating numbers don't work. It isn't really about the land. It's about buying the one thing that's become genuinely scarce in a connected world, a place where nobody else can reach you unless you let them. People think they're buying a piece of paradise. The people who actually go through with it eventually understand they were buying something rarer than paradise. They were buying the absence of everyone else's paradise all at once and all the time.